Hey guys, welcome to Overcrest. I'm Chris, and we have a great show for me today. Also you, but also me. It's tiny little story time. I was on a Overcrest rally, and there was the road to Airwater, and I met this woman. Her name was Nicole Johnson, and we were talking a little bit, and somehow it came up where I found out that she had been a monster truck driver, and it was like one of those scenes where you have just a memory flood, just like and it's all blurry and spirally, and you feel like you're falling into a black hole. And I was like 10 years old again, and I just go, I've got to talk to I've got to talk to this woman about monster trucks. So here we are. There's a lot more to it than that. She's got some great stories. She's got a great YouTube channel. She did King of the Hammers, obviously the monster truck thing. First woman to ever do a backflip in a monster truck. Amazing, amazing stuff. I'm really excited to have her on. Hope you guys enjoy the episode. If you want to support content like this, www. Does anybody say www? No, nobody says that. To support this content, go to overcrestproductions.com/drivers club. Join the Patreon. We've got some exclusive content there. We've got all kinds of goodies. Plus, you get to feel good about supporting content just like this. It's only $5. I hope you guys enjoy the episode. Here's my interview with Nicole Johnson. Nicole Johnson, thank you for taking the time to come hang out. I'm really excited I've been excited about this since we met on the Airwater rally, and I didn't know you, but I was introduced to you, and someone said monster trucks, and I had this flashback in my mind, and I was like, I don't know if all of a sudden like you saw my demeanor change, and I like all of a sudden had like a million questions in my mind, all these different things that I wanted to ask you and find out, because this is basically this is like the 9-year-old me version of this podcast all of a sudden, which I think that 9-year-old lives within all of us, right? All the things that we were excited about in that coming of age period of time of like 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, a lot of the things we really love. And, it was for me, it was like wrestling and monster trucks and playing outside and just all this different stuff. And I was like, oh my gosh. And then I resisted really asking you any questions because I really wanted to just have you on the podcast. And anyway, thank you so much for coming to hang out. I'm glad that you are here.
Well, I am likewise really excited to be here. And I thought it was really fun going on that rally with you guys. And I just love meeting new people, and I'm really appreciative that you would invite me. So thank you.
Yeah, it was fun. That was such an interesting cross-section of people. Some people were like, wow, we're going out in the middle of nowhere. Great. And some people were going, why are we out in the middle of nowhere? Like the same sentence with totally different voice inflections.
Right. Well, I mean, Amboy is literally in the middle of nowhere, but what a really cool backdrop. And it's like, I could see the artistic vision and what you guys were going for, because the sun was setting, the really cool, like mid-century modern vibe of the place was like aglow with Porsches in front of it. It was really cool. I thought it was awesome. I was on the team. Yay. Middle of nowhere.
You're on the positive voice inflection team. So I always kind of want to figure out where people are coming from. And I have kind of maybe a special affinity to who you became based on who I envision my daughters being someday. Right. So maybe someday my kids will be interviewed on a podcast and be like, hey, where did you get your love for cars? And they're going to go, well, my dad. And, I kind of think from what I looked up that your dad was a diesel mechanic. And I imagine that's probably where some of this came from you, is getting it imparted on you by your dad.
Yeah. My parents divorced when I was 4. So my real dad, I call both of my dads, my stepdad and my real dad, dad. So it's really easy for people to be confused when I'm talking about him. My real dad was born and raised in Hawaii. I spent a lot of time there visiting him as a kid because I grew up in California with my mom. So I would spend all my summers in Hawaii. And I was always in the garage with him, organizing his tools and sorting the nuts and bolts and stuff. And he would be talking about turbos, and a lot of it would go over my head. Hindsight, right? Like now that I'm an adult and I know more about how a turbo works, I kind of wish I'd paid attention more when I was like 10. But he was constantly telling me how engines work and turbos work. And I can still see my dad using his arm, like showing me how an engine would work. You know what I mean? Explaining it to me. And we had a go-kart when I was little. So it was a Briggs and Stratton, like lawnmower engine, go-kart that we would illegally drive out on the street until, maybe cops would come, and then we put it away and act natural. Like it wasn't a big deal. Yeah. And so Yes, my dad had a huge influence on me. He was also way into Panteras. So, he always had somebody else's Pantera in his garage that he'd be wrenching on.
Right.
And, so he was definitely, my first introduction to motors, and he's very mechanical, fix it kind of guy. Like, he loved broken toys so that he could fix them. When he was a kid, they would literally give him a broken toy because he had more fun trying to figure it out. And I always thought I was like that. I ended up, when I went off to college, I studied construction management, which probably seems odd, but I'm super mechanical minded, and it felt like a good fit naturally. My brain is always thinking like that. My other dad, who became my stepdad when I was 6, was the manager at a Porsche and Audi dealership. So even though he wasn't mechanical, I still have a lot of really fond memories of Porsches, because he would drive one home every day, a different one every single day.
He never brought home the Audis? He didn't bring home like the Audi 90? It was
Nope. He could drive whatever was on the lot, and he always took a Porsche.
Yeah, I mean, come on. Who's driving Audi 90's got a locking differential, pretty cool, but yeah, that's not a red light.
I did have an Audi. I had in the year 2000, I had a 1990 Audi V8 Quattro, which was super fun.
The Audi V8s, that's a rare car.
Mm-hmm.
And there's 4 of them in the junkyard here. 4.
Oh my gosh.
I don't think there's
so
ever been 4 of those together, ever. Oh, they're a nightmare. And my buddy's like, hey, there's a manual one for sale on Facebook Marketplace. I go, dude, nightmare. No, do not buy that car.
They're hard. They're expensive. I had a German mechanic, a guy from Germany here in Las Vegas that was working on it. He had it at his shop like every 6 weeks. He made a lot of money on me. We had to get rid of it at one point, but it handled awesome. It was a great car. I found out that the windows would fold in at about 140 miles an hour. So they would, I'm not the windows, I'm sorry, the mirrors. Did I say windows? The mirrors would go thunk at about 140. So
yeah, great. Well, the rest of the car probably felt great at those speeds.
Yeah,
totally that thing is legendary. And I think they have, like they say, Quattro on the rear glass. It was just this time for Audi that was really special. Now I look at Audi, and I was actually shopping for trucks for my wife, because she really wants a G-Wagon, they've come down in price a lot. Like, you can get a G-Wagon now for like 25 grand. So it's starting to be like, I could actually own a G-Wagon. And so I was like,
and get what about Stigma for free?
I almost think she wants it. Wants the Stigma for some reason.
Funny.
But I was like, what about like a Q7? She's like, I'm not driving an Audi. There's no way. And I think Audi's kind of lost a little bit of its mojo lately. It just doesn't feel the same.
I don't know. Some of the wagons look really hot, though.
Yeah,
like the little 4-door wagons are pretty cool.
Yeah, or an RS6 Avant or something would be pretty cool. So what are you working on in the garage? Like, were you working on these Panteras, or did you find your own car to work on, or what are you up to?
You mean when I was a kid?
Yeah,
or like last Friday?
Like teenager. Well, let's start with like teenage you. Like, what is the daughter of a diesel mechanic driving in high school? What is she working on?
Well, since I lived in California during the school year with my mom and stepdad, it was really my stepdad's decision when I drove to high school. And that was a Dodge Colt. It was not sexy, and I crashed it because it was not sexy. I totaled it. So then it got replaced with another Dodge Colt.
How did tell me this story. How did this thing get totaled?
Oh, geez. My high school was in Ventura County, California. A lot of strawberry fields, a lot of farmland, flat, totally flat. And
strawberry fields forever.
That's right. So my high school was in the middle of a strawberry field, and you had to go down a long farm road. There was a 4-way stop, continuing down the farm road, and then you would hit the 101 freeway and be all freeway the rest of the way. I had to drive about 20 minutes to get to my high school. And I was just not paying attention, playing with the radio, had a car full of kids, and that 4-way stop had an F-150 right in front of me. And so I decided to make my car a foot shorter by hitting the F-150 at 50 miles an hour.
Good Lord.
No damage to the truck, not even a scratch on his bumper.
That's how it works. That's how it always works.
Yeah. So I totaled that car. I was 16. And I remember my stepdad saying, well, that's the reason why we had full coverage on that car, because I knew statistically you were probably going to crash it. And he never had told me that ahead of time.
Yeah.
So luckily there was these are only $2,000-$3,000 cars at the time. So that was a 1988 Dodge Colt 4-door.
Man,
it was
those things
blue.
are actually kind of cool.
No, that one was not cool. And
I don't know. This is a total piece of shit. Like if you could find an old Dodge Colt with like 20,000 miles on it and get in,
it would still have vinyl seats that are crap. I'm telling you, they're garbage. No nice things in it at all. It was awful.
We'd shot a little production, Jake and I, one of the Overcrest guys, and I wanted to surprise him with a car to drive because he knew that I bought a 73 Ford Pinto Squire wagon, and it was mint. It had like a Pan Am sticker on the bumper and stuff. It was absolutely mint. Needed nothing. It was mint. And I'm like, hey, let's take these cars out. I got to go pick this car up and drive it back. And the owner of the car, my friend Adam Stone, who's the super enigmatic guy, awesome, cool car collection, says, hey, if you want, I'll throw in this 88 Ford Escort LS for cheap. Take it or leave it. I'm like, fuck it, I'll take it. So I bought the Escort 2. It was baby blue with a blue vinyl interior. Really probably not that much different than the Colt. But I'm like, Jake, we're going to go drive cars together. He was so excited. And then when I pulled up and pulled up in that Escort for him to drive, you've never seen a man be so disappointed in his life.
It was a piece of crap.
Oh man. Well, it was a nice car, but God, it was an automatic 3-speed AM only radio, no air conditioning. It's the height of summer. We have to drive 6 hours. Yeah, he wasn't. I think he kind of maybe, if you could corner him now, I think he would say, yeah, I kind of love that car. You know, if you spend enough time in any car, you start to adapt to its quirks and you start to like it a little bit. But that car had almost no redeeming qualities whatsoever.
Well, I have a funny story about my 4-door baby blue Dodge Colt. So my dad thought it would be kind of a neat gift. Again, he's not really a car guy. He's a business guy. You know, He's a manager of a Porsche dealership. So I got those experiences. But that doesn't mean he has really great taste in cars. He got me these spoke like hubcaps, like wire spoke hubcaps that you could go down to the auto parts store for super cheap and buy. And they would just snap on because I didn't have wheels. They were just like steel, like the ugly steel. They look like spare tires.
Yep.
So he buys them for me and they were so hideous. And I was so embarrassed. We put them on the car and I'm secretly telling my mom, I was like, these are the ugliest things I've ever seen. And I got to drive to high school with these on. Oh my gosh, this looks so bad. And they're like poked out, like they came out like a cone shape.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
So I drive to school one day and then that afternoon, my mom and I conspire and we pop them off and we throw them in the trash because it was trash day. We could hurry up and throw them in the dumpster and Dad would never know that they didn't get stolen. So
someone stole these things? He would have been like, yeah, I totally believe that they were stolen because they're awesome.
That's exactly his response. I was like, oh, Dad, we got really bad news. I mean, somebody stole the wheels while I was at school. And he's like, I was afraid of that. And my mom and I are like, he never knew. I mean, he died 2 years ago and he never knew. Now he's listening. They were awful.
That would have been a good last confession.
It was bad.
FC Piero is an online retailer of OEM, genuine aftermarket, and performance parts for European cars. From BMW to Porsche, Volvo, and more, their catalog is a one-stop shop with over 275,000 unique products, including expert assembled kits to make shopping simpler. They are actively building out the VW, Audi, and Porsche catalogs, adding new parts all the time. From current to our favorite classics, including the Mark I Scirocco free ride car, which you guys are going to get to see me build in a couple of weeks, they are working to have every part you need for all of your cars. Plus, every product they sell is backed by a lifetime replacement guarantee, even wear items like wiper blades, brake pads, and oil filters. With the opening of their distribution center in Mesa, Arizona, FC Piero is now shipping parts from both coasts, serving most of the country in just 3 days or less with the free shipping option. We at Overcrest have been working with FC Piero for years and can vouch for them. Real people who are passionate about what they do and the cars we love, while making sure to put you, the customer, first. Check them out today at fcpiero.com and take advantage of free shipping and lifetime warranty on any order over $49. Check them out today at FCP. Check them out today at fcpeuro.com and take advantage of free shipping on any order over $49. I had a confession that I made to my grandfather. There was he had a white F-150, and when I was like 16 or 17, we would just take the cars out and go run around. And I ended up driving this thing. I did two things. Anyway, we'll stick with this one. And we went into this farmer's field and we just started doing donuts. We started doing donuts and we're like driving around and we're throwing it into park while we're still moving and sliding on the dirt and doing all this stuff. And then finally the farmer comes out on his ATV and he starts chasing us across the field. So I'm like, oh shit, we got to get away. So the farm is low and it's kind of got a crown up to the road. So I'm going 45 probably across this field, across this field. And I hit the edge of the road and just wham. And it just compressed the front suspension. This thing ain't going to the king of the hammers. This is a stock F-150. So I hit this thing and I just bend the frame.
Oh my
Okay,
gosh.
so I bend the frame. And I drive this thing home. I get out and I turn around and I look at it. And I just go, And I didn't say anything. And he didn't say anything. He took it in, got it fixed. He never said anything. Never. Mm-hmm. So I told him, I was like, hey, that one time when I brought the truck home, he's like, yeah, I know. He's like, I know it was you.
Yeah.
I know. I knew it was you.
That was your one pass. You got one pass,
I guess. Yeah. Cause I broke his transmission on his Mercury Grand Marquis once trying to do like neutral drops in it. And I definitely had to help fix that. And doing a transmission without a hoist on the ground in a garage with a guy that grew up on a farm in the 40s, who just basically still has all the same tools from the 40s, but he's an engineer. He just makes things work. So it was not a great experience. Railroad ties for jack stands, all this stuff. And he always got things done. That's where my inspiration always came from, was grandpa with cars, of just like, hey, let's figure it out with what we got. But that was like a week in summer.
I think, as we get older, we are much wiser than the younger generation will give us credit for. We know what's up. Now we know. You said you have kids. You have daughters?
Do. Yeah, 9 and 10-year-old daughters. Yeah.
Oh, wait. They can't pull the wool past you, I'm sure.
Not yet, but I think they're going to start trying pretty soon.
Are they speaking that weird language that all the little 9 and 10-year-olds and kids are speaking now, like skibbity or whatever they say in Ohio all these weird things?
They have some weird stuff that they do. And they invent their own language too, so it's probably like local dialect that I have. Like yes is yar, as I say yes. Okay. And for nar is nar, no is nar. So if I say, hey, do you want to do this? They go nar, and I go, don't do that to me. Just tell me no, or no, thank you.
They think they're pirates. Maybe they're going through a pirate phase. I don't
know. And I invented what I said, well, maybe is now Marbar. So I'm trying to get in and maybe seem like I'm a little younger than I am. So I'm kind of jump on the train. Right. But yeah, I don't think they're quite old enough yet to get any of the slang, but there are a few things that I've sensed coming out. Yeah. Well, and they're girls, so I'm sure that at some point they're going to be sneaking out the sliding door in the basement and trying to steal the car. And I'm going to have to probably find a different throttle linkage to put on the 911 so it doesn't go to wide open throttle. And when they want to drive it and all this stuff, it's only a matter of time. So you got another Dodge Colt?
Yeah. So at this time, my stepdad was no longer at the Porsche Audi dealership. He had opened up a thrifty car rental. He was a franchisee for thrifty car rental, went into that business. So we had Dodge Colts. So my Dodge Colt was a former car rental. When I crashed it, I got the newer year. So instead of a 1988, I got a 1989 Dodge Colt, but it was a hatchback and it was red, 2-door. And I was excited about this car because it looked a lot like a Honda Civic. The little hatchback Civics at the time were super cool. Yep. And I just had like the little not so cool Colt version, but I thought it was really cool. I then blew up the motor because I didn't put oil in it.
Oh no.
I broke down on the freeway one day and I had to walk to a call box to call my dad. Said, I don't know what's going on, but it just made a bunch of noise and stuff.
It made some bad sounds, Dad.
Yeah, and he
I
goes,
gotta picture this thing. Let's
he
pull up
goes,
the.
yeah, pull up a 1989 red Dodge Colt. Yeah, it looked just like that, but red. Exactly like that.
I mean,
So,
that's look at this. The photography makes this thing look pretty futuristic. Look at
yeah.
this. Ooh, look at
Well,
that.
they're small. It looks probably big in that photo, but it's not. It's little. My
Look at
friends
that
in
interior.
college called it the strawberry. So I drove that all through the rest of high school, college, all the way after I graduated college. And then for a few more years, I had 150,000 miles on it when I dumped it and got it when it was only like 2 years old. So I put a lot of miles on it.
There
But yeah, I didn't put oil in it. When I called my dad, he goes, hey, I want you to walk back over to that car and check the dipstick and tell me what the reading is. I come back and I go, it looks like dirt. There was no oil. It looked like crumbs. That's what happens if you blow up your car by not putting oil in it. It will look like dirt crumbs on your dipstick.
Yeah, whatever oil is left just like calcifies and turns into powder. Yeah, not
so
good.
I had to help pay for that. We got another.
What was your job? How did you pay for it? I mean,
so I worked at the car rental, all summer at the car rental business. Yeah. So my siblings, we all like ended up working there, like washing cars, or like we were up in Ventura, which is about 45 minutes from LAX. And so a lot of times people would rent a car and drop it off at LAX, but we needed to get the car back. So we would shuttle down there, bring cars. So we were always running cars from LA to Ventura.
A little different now with all the stuff that they've got. Yeah. But every time I'm at the airport and I go to the rental car place, if this is like around the corner, I'm always kind of going like this to look and see how long the line is or what the disaster is with the rental car thing, man.
Yeah. But what I learned is don't ever take one of the rental cars because people are really harsh on them. Don't buy a rental car.
No, imagine buying the Model 3s from Hertz or whatever that they were like whoring out or whatever because they were just, I don't know. People had to have absolutely flogged those Model 3s just because they're fast.
My husband rented a Jeep Liberty one day, and he was going to a rock crawling event. So he's I don't know where he's at, Northern California. He rents a Jeep Liberty, gets full coverage, takes it off-roading, returns it with the front and rear bumper in the back seat. And just, I don't know what happened. They fell off, he said, but he had full coverage. So,
oh my God.
So people are hard on rentals.
They are. Well, I had an event that we did. I want to try and not get too specific here because I don't want anybody to get in trouble. But we had an event that we did that we needed the car that the person was supposed to drive didn't show up on time. And so we needed something for this person to drive. So we, call up the rental company and we ended up getting a hybrid Jeep. And we didn't know what to do with this hybrid Jeep because the car showed up. So then they could drive that. But then now there's nobody to drive the hybrid Jeep. So we pulled the fuse out of the fuel pump, left it on the side of the road and said, hey, your Jeep broke down. Here's the address. Peace out. And we didn't really know. I feel kind of bad. Like that's pretty schemy. But it's like, I don't know. It's whatever. I don't know. Maybe that story should have remained a mystery forever. But yeah, rental car companies, they've got to deal with some serious shit that's way on a way different level than that anyway.
Yeah, for sure. Totally.
So how did you go from the girl who's driving the Dodge to how does this off-roading thing happen? Obviously it probably didn't happen overnight, but how do you get interested in this stuff? Where is the inception of your interest in what you're eventually doing today?
Probably started with my husband. I got married really young. I was 19 and I had just finished my freshman year of college. And my husband was 22. We were super young. We were both from the same area in California. And like he had a Land Cruiser with a Chevy 350 in it, a 72 Toyota Land Cruiser and big curly hair. And I just thought he was really cute and let's get married. At 19, you don't have a lot of criteria.
How much did the truck have to do with it? If he was driving a Colt, would that have put the kibosh on?
Well, I mean,
was the curly hair enough?
He had curly hair and a freight horn on his truck. I mean, that was it. I mean, sold, right? Like Dodge curly hair, Land Cruiser. Huh?
Dodge Colt with the freight horn?
No. His Land Cruiser had
but if he had the Dodge Colt with the freight horn, would the curly hair have been enough?
No.
No, it wouldn't.
No.
No.
You
would have walked away.
He was a lifeguard. He was tan. He had curly ringlet hair. I just thought he was really cute. Anyway, my parents were like, what are you doing? I was like, this makes perfect sense. I know what I'm doing. Anyway, that was 31 years ago. So somehow we have made it work. I'm been married a long time. And so that was his daily driver, which in 1993, that car was only 21 years old. Today, It's really old, but that didn't seem like a big deal that it was his daily driver back then. Yeah. And I don't know, he was just always going four-wheeling. And that wheeling turned into us meeting people who he would go four-wheeling with. He was constantly breaking trails around Vegas, like going out all by himself and just like figuring out how to get through, obstacles and making new trails. And then he and a buddy started competing in 1998 when rock crawling competition was new. And so he was the spotter and his buddy drove a Jeep, and they just, rock crawling competition is just, it's about finesse, and it's not about speed. You might have 10 minutes to go 100 yards, but there would be cones set up as obstacles, like a series of gates. You have to get through this series of gate, these cones, and then progress to this other. And you can make flat ground super difficult based on cone placement, because the rules were don't hit a cone, don't back up. So now you scatter these cones on some of the gnarliest rock formations you've ever seen, and it can get pretty hard. So he did that for a few years. And we were constantly like four-wheeling, going to Moab. We just loved four-wheeling. And then one day somebody asked if I wanted to drive their vehicle at an all-women's event.
What did you love so much about it? Like, what was it about it that really drew you in, do you think?
Well, originally I was terrified of it because he would drive and I would sit passenger, as a lot of women will do. A lot of wives and girlfriends, sorry, I bumped my camera. A lot of wives and girlfriends are usually not behind the wheel. They're sitting in the passenger seat if they go at all, is what I've discovered. A lot of them are just like, it's your thing. You go. And I was scared. Every time we would get off camber, I thought we were going to roll. I didn't know where the center of gravity was on that vehicle, and I couldn't sense it as a passenger. It's difficult to sense that as a passenger. Yep. So I was constantly screaming and crying and upset. And one day he's like, you drive. And now he regrets that.
He does that.
No. So I got behind the wheel, and admittedly, I didn't know anything. We would go down a trail and I had to have him spot me every single obstacle. He would tell me left, right, stop, go. Sometimes he'd get out and go tell me which way to go. I didn't know. But once I was behind the wheel, I realized, I can sense that we're stable. You know what I mean? And so you get a little bit more confidence.
Yeah, you've got feedback. You've got feedback from the vehicle about what's going on. And you can feel it in your butt and your seat and your arms, the feedback from the steering. Yeah.
So, I mean, it was fun. For us, we were camping and four-wheeling at least once a month. We would go on a camping trip and go wheeling with friends. And it was a lot of fun. We had a really good time doing that. And that was just our lifestyle. It is a lifestyle when you're into Jeeping and off-roading and stuff like that. So made a lot of good friends doing that. And because I had already seen the competition side of it for a handful of years, our kids were little. I think our kids were born in 98 and 2000. So by 2004, they're 4 and 6 years old. I had never competed, but I'd been around it. I'd gone four-wheeling. I'd been around the really extreme off-roading for a while now. And somebody said, hey, you want to drive my event, my vehicle, an all-women's event? And I was like, okay. And then I won the event, and you just kind of get bit by the bug. Like,
what vehicle is that? Was that like an extreme off-roading vehicle? What's the difference between?
That was weird. That car was super a one-off weird. That was like, okay, so it was called a Rhino, not to be confused with a UTV Rhino. And that was before the UTV, Rhinos were out. But it was just a tube chassis thing that this guy was trying to build to sell to like the military and stuff. That was just a super weird one-off.
Hey, you want to drive this in this other thing for basically he wants it to be seen in another event is what's happening.
Exactly.
Right?
And he was just a friend, and his name's Howard Pearl. And it flexed like a shoebox. It was awful. It was terrible. I think our, buggy that we would go to Moab in was way more capable than what he asked me to drive. But of course, I'll go drive it. I enjoy driving. Even as a kid, I was constantly pestering my friends. Hey, let me drive your car. I was always pestering. Hey, let me drive your car. I just always have liked to drive anything. Yeah. And so anyway, I won that event, but what happens is you get this false sense of like, ooh, I could do this. Like, oh, I'm really good.
Like, maybe I'm a natural. I'm a natural.
You think, I want to do this. And so, my husband was actually spotting for another team. And I convinced him, leave that team. Let's start our own team. And now this isn't, the team he was spotting on was not like a women's type of series. I mean, it was dudes. It was all dudes with a couple of women there. And these are the best guys on the planet with the most capable vehicles on the planet. This is pre King of the Hammers. And in fact, the guys that started King of the Hammers, I competed against. We were all in the same class and I knew all those guys. So I said, hey, let's just do our own thing, And we ended up getting a lot of media coverage for it because I think it's unique that, I'm a girl out there. And our first year, we were totally getting our butts handed to us. I didn't place any better than 14th place. And
this
really
is a lot different. I just want to get across the contrast of that period of time versus now. Now there's a lot more women involved in this stuff, and it's less of a shock, right? But back then, I'm sure it was a little bit different.
I think so. I mean, there was just a couple of us, and it was very, very male dominated. That never intimidated me, though. Having a degree in construction management, I have always been around dudes. Like, I don't see gender as a barrier. I just show up and, hi, whatever. I'm just one of the guys, but I still can remain feminine. Like, I'm not a feminist, you know what I mean? I just have never seen gender as any kind of a barrier, especially with vehicles. It's hands and feet and brain. It has nothing to do with gender.
Yeah, so, it's not like jumping in a pool and going against Michael Phelps or something.
Exactly. Right, exactly. We were watching some of the Olympic coverage going, dude, those guys are fast compared to the women, right? They're super quick. So
I was watching the dudes in the canoe going because I'm thinking about this a lot. I was watching the slalom. I'm like, that's kind of like off-roading because they're going through these like little gates as they go down the water on the rapids and stuff.
Yeah.
Anyway, so what's the difference between? Okay, so I don't know if you know this. I have an Isuzu Trooper. Mm-hmm. Okay, and I put a TDI in it, so it's got a big turbo and it's kind of scoots okay. It's got 350
like a Volkswagen TDI.
I did, yeah. It's a one of a kind big turbo TDI Trooper. Nobody's ever done before. It's awesome.
That's cool.
That's my wife's favorite thing that I've built because she likes. We took it off roading before we did the swap. Off roading, as in drive it through like 2 feet of water and in this this off roading park. She really enjoyed it. So now that it's done, she's excited. But what's the difference between something like that it's got a motor swap and you can lock the hubs and stuff and you can do different things. It's an 89 or whatever. So it's kind of an older school truck, has independent rear suspension with everybody's like, you got to get rid of that. Anyway, what is the difference between something like that and like a hardcore truck? Like how far removed? Because you look at race cars and sometimes you can go, okay, I can still see the original car in that race car. Maybe they modified the engine or moved the engine back a little bit, or it's got a roll cage, the interior's got it, but it's still kind of, if you close your eyes and blur your eyes a little bit, you can still see the car. AC Solutions offers complete plug-and-play air conditioning conversion kits for your classic BMW, such as the E30, E28, and E24, and soon to be Porsche. Featuring OEM quality components with period-correct finishes and materials, their products are designed as a drop-in upgrade to your old factory system, but with the performance of modern technology. Their products stem from hands-on design and development with a deep knowledge and passion for these vehicles. They're designed by enthusiasts for enthusiasts. They're designed by enthusiasts for enthusiasts and come complete with a full warranty and quality instructions mirroring those of a factory manual. Check out all of their offerings at acsolutions.co, acsolutions.co today. Petrol Box is a monthly service made specifically for the automotive enthusiast. Each month, they carefully select items including tools, detailing supplies, apparel, garage gear, stickers, and publications to be sent right to your doorstep. It's a curated selection of the latest and greatest gear in the industry. There are actually 2 different levels of subscription for you to choose from. The Petrol Box Classic. The Petrol Box Basic costs less than $20 a month, while the Petrol Box Premium gets you more gear for $39.95 a month. Check them out at mypetrolbox.com and be sure to use the code Overcrest at checkout to get $6 off your first month. Yeah. Is that the same thing with off-roading, or is there different tiers of this stuff? Like, what is the difference?
It really depends on how deep you're going to get. When I competed at the World Extreme Rock Crawling Competition Series, when we first, let me back up a little. The first year I competed, I said we didn't take any better than 14th place. I wanted to be more competitive than that. So we got rid of that vehicle and I got a custom built tube chassis vehicle that was purpose built for that sport. It wasn't street legal. You had to trailer it places. It was a 92-inch wheelbase, tube chassis, right? It had a little turbo Ecotec motor in it. with a 2-speed power glide on 37-inch mud terrains, 3-link suspension, Dana 60s front and rear, air lockers front and rear, a transfer case, an Atlas transfer case that which shifts the power. You could either have it in front wheel drive or rear wheel drive or 4-wheel drive with both front and rear. And I had 2 cutting brakes, which controlled if I on the left, if I push forward, it would brake the front left, pull back, brake the front or the back left, and on the other stick, push pull on the right side of the vehicle. So
that sounds ridiculous. That sounds absolutely insane.
Incredibly technical. So I could put the car in 1, 2, 3, or 4-wheel drive and put the power to whatever tire I wanted.
And the brakes
totally different.
So you could hook up on one area, hit the brakes, and then drive, the rear wheels and drive it around using that other wheel as like an anchor or something.
And it had a fiberglass, so the rules of that pro modified class were you had to have a 3-dimensional body that looked like something. So it had a Jeep Liberty grill on it and a modified narrowed hood. And ta-da, we have a Jeep Liberty. It didn't look anything like, it's like saying a NASCAR Camry is a Camry. They're not the same.
Is that because of do manufacturers sponsor this stuff? And
no, this was just a dumb grassroots sport, and that was their rule. And that was part of the reason to distinguish the pro modified class from the unlimited class. The unlimited class so we were maxed out.
You already sound unlimited.
Well, hold on. On the exact same courses, which were the hardest courses. So to be clear, the hardest courses that they had were 2 different classes that drove. Unlimited could have any size tire. We were limited to 37s. They could have rear steer. We could only have front steer. They could be a single seat moon buggy. We had to have 2 seats side by side. And they didn't have to run any body panels, which body panels obstruct vision. So we had to run body panels. So the Pro Mod class was a lot more competitive and challenging because we're going to drive on the same hard courses with a limited vehicle. If that makes sense. So it was actually more preferred because we had a bigger class, a bigger purse. And that's where, everybody wanted to be competing in because the unlimiteds they could just do anything. So you want a little more challenge.
How much does this stuff cost?
So in 2008, I bought that vehicle and it was $60,000, which everything with the invention of King of the Hammers, it would never have been competitive today. I raced it for 2 out of 3 years at King of the Hammers and finished both times in that vehicle. You could never compete today. But now if you go hire somebody to do that, you're probably looking at twice as much. That seems cheap by comparison only because of inflation and stuff.
So is it, you said finished, does that mean, is it kind of like Le Mans where if you just finish,
it's like the New York City Marathon, dude.
It's like just finish.
So I was the first female to finish King of the Hammers. I raced it in 2008, 9, and 10. In 8 and 10, I drove my buggy and totally tortoise in the hair because I had Dana 60s. Oh, I was also on 2-inch air shocks. Suspension was not meant to go fast in that vehicle. It was specifically built to crawl on the hardest terrain possible. It was never built for speed.
Yep.
So as guys would be flying past me in the desert, I could just kick their butt in the rocks. They would be stuck on some rocks because they're bigger and heavier and longer and maybe not as nimble. And I could just right past them in the rocks. Right. And then we go out in the open desert. They'd fly right past me.
So describe this event to me. So I'm kind of envisioning it. For some reason, I'm just thinking of the rock crawling, but there's a lot more to it than that, right?
For King of the Hammers?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's open desert combined with some of the hardest rock trails in existence, really. Now there are just a couple 100 miles of open desert. So if you think about open desert racing, you think the Baja 1000. Those are trophy trucks that are designed to go really fast. You can soak up 4-foot whoops and it'll drive like a Cadillac.
It looks like you drop a cat on its feet. They just go.
Exactly. The chassis stays perfectly level, while the suspension goes crazy because they have a lot of.
It's like watching a pigeon walk. You ever watch a pigeon walk where their heads don't really move? Yeah.
Well, they do this. Exactly. I thought.
Which one is it where you grab their body and you move it back and forth? I think it is a pigeon. You grab their body and you shake them around and their head just stays in exactly the same spot.
To me, a pigeon, every time I see a pigeon walk, I play in my head, staying alive, do. That's funny. So in a trophy truck, You want that, it's all independent suspension, right? You're not using any solid axle, anything, independent front and rear. That traditionally doesn't crawl well. And so when King of the Hammers was first starting, everybody was on solid axles, straight axles. And then Shannon Campbell, the guy who built my buggy, shows up with an independent front suspension, and everybody loses their mind. You can't do that. You can't do that. Everybody freaked out. You can't drive it. Well, he learned, because he's Shannon effing Campbell, that with a lot of horsepower, you could just sort of mash your way through. Forget about finesse. There's no cones. It's about speed. So he learned how to get through it. And then the sport morphed, where all the manufacturers, Currie Enterprises was a huge one right up in the early days. I'm sure there's others now, that I'm not aware of, but they all started figuring out how to make an independent suspension, front and rear, get through really, really big technical rocks. And that's where the sport has changed the industry. The aftermarket industry has learned so much from that sport. So to be fair, when I was racing it, it wasn't that sport. It's so much different today. It was just run what you brung, show up, no spectators, no vendors. We were just bringing our rock buggies out and going, dude, you're nuts. You think we're going to go do 12 of these trails and 100 miles of desert in one day? To back it up a little bit, in 1998, my first time out at the Hammers, we were in our old Land Cruiser on leaf springs, and it took us 12 hours to do a 1 mile trail. It was that hard. We were in a group of other Land Cruisers. Everybody was broken on obstacle 1, and nobody would turn around. We're all dragging each other's butt through. Nobody would turn around. I mean, snapped Burfields and everything. So Sledgehammer was the name of that trail. Well, Sledge is a totally famous trail out at the Hammers. And now we're doing that in like 6 minutes. Something crazy. People are just flying through there. So
is there any evolution left?
I don't know. I don't know. You know what, though? I will give it to Bronco. The Ford Bronco was developed with a lot of that technology in mind. And I know several of the guys that were part of the R&D team, guys that I used to compete against in rock crawling and King of the Hammers. They had a lot of input and some of the features in the Ford Bronco. I was part of the consumer launch, like the launch team when we were giving consumers rides. I was part of that team, and I was super impressed with that vehicle because I was like, oh, I can see how some of the things that we used to do in competition are being implemented here. So I know it's influenced OEM, which is super cool.
Yeah,
for sure. Very influential.
It just seems like at some point you can only throw so much power at something, and unless you change the book, it gets tough for things to. It gets harder for people to find loopholes, right? Every time they fix a loophole, someone finds another one, and at some point, there's no more loopholes left.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't really paid attention to it for a few years because I'm sort of on to other things, which is the exact reason why my show is called Nicole Johnson's Detour. I'm detouring from all my past experiences and checking out new things, which is super eye-opening because I lived so many years in the off-road space. I never knew anything else. It was like my blinders were on and I thought the whole world was off-road. And then I learned about all these other cars, things that my dad liked that I never paid attention to, hot rods and Porsches and all these other things that I never realized existed and are super fun to experience for the first time.
Well, it sounds like it's part of your core. You talked about it earlier where you just like to drive all your friends' cars and stuff like that. It seems like that's
totally.
That's kind of how it is for you, deep down. Do you have any harrowing experiences? Did anything bad happen on any of these events?
Harrowing. Well, I mean, when I was in monster trucks, I, coughed up blood once from wiping out and crashing. I mean, I've had, knock on wood, I have not had any like injuries that have, obviously I'm still here. I can move my neck, but I've had, I've rolled in every direction possible. I have forward rolled, backward rolled, sideways, barrel rolled through the air. I have burst into flames. Did I ever get over it? I burst into flames. I've done everything you can think of in a car or a vehicle. And so I guess, you just rely on your safety equipment and hope it works,
Yeah. So does someone just all of a sudden walk up to you one day and go, this looks fun. Do you want to drive a monster truck too? Or what?
So after a few years of competing in rock crawling and 3 years of King of the Hammers, I knew that I needed to I was trying to get into Lucas Oil short course racing, which is like trials bikes. I mean, not trials bikes, like motocross, except in trucks and buggies, because it's in a stadium. There's a crowd. You can watch it. It was televised. I really wanted to move into short course racing. I had a 1600cc Volkswagen motor and a little single buggy. It's called a 1600 buggy. And I did a wee bit of that, but that was not enough horsepower, or, it was just like a stepping stone into like trying that sport, a cheap way to get in. But I wanted to be in a class that was televised. So I needed to go find money and sponsorship. So I was walking around SEMA in 2010 with a whole portfolio of all of the media. I had really good media. I had been in magazines and on television, and some good exposure for how small the sport was. And I met Dennis Anderson, who is the guy who created Gravedigger. He's the driver and the creator of the Gravedigger monster truck. And he was with his son, Ryan, and I met him at SEMA, just happenstance. I just looked up and he's standing right in front of me. And this is here's the motivational part. If I'm a motivational speaker, I'm going to tell you that had I just stayed quiet and not stuck my hand out and said hello, I would not be here right now. And I think you just have to be gutsy enough to say, what do I care what they think? I'm going to go say hello. And I walked right up to him and I stuck my hand out and I said, hey, you're Dennis Anderson. Most people would go, oh, and then not say something. And when I stuck my hand out and said my name, his son goes, you're that rock crawler chick, aren't you? And I was like, oh, that is the coolest thing ever, because how do you know that? Like, it's, to me, this little grassroots sport. And he goes, I kind of follow that. So Dennis and Ryan were the ones that said, hey, they're looking for female drivers. So they introduced me. Monster Jam was owned by Feld Motorsports, which owned Supercross, Disney on Ice, and at the time, Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Circus, which is now no longer a thing. So the bosses were in town for SEMA. The next day, they introduced me to the bosses. And guess who already has a press kit in her hand trying to find sponsors for short course racing?
Yep. So
I gave them a DVD and my little press kit. And within, that was a Wednesday. By Monday, I get a phone call. And they're like, hey, we want you to come to North Carolina to test drive a monster truck. And I'm like, okay, cool. Like, you're going to show me how to drive one? It's not like I've even been to a show. I've never even been to a show. Yeah. So they're like, oh, yeah, we'll have a guy that shows you how to, just come out and test drive. So I find myself in North Carolina within 2 weeks of meeting Dennis. I'm at Digger Dungeon, which is Dennis's property, sitting in a Gravedigger truck. Now, in my mind, I'm like, free trip to North Carolina. Whoa! I'm just thinking, sure. I just want to go check out monster trucks. I'm not thinking career path.
Yep.
So they give me they have me go through some little set of drills, like, oh, here, just do a whole shot. We're out in a big field. I'm in the monster truck, and they're like, just hold your foot on the brake. And there's a guy standing there and just in an imaginary big dirt area. And he goes, I'll hold my arm up. And when I drop my arm, that's a green light. And then just go and go 20 feet. Seems like nothing, right? Well, it's 1,500 horsepower. A lot of people lift because they get scared. Yeah. You have to go. You're going to come up on the torque converter. You're going to hold the brake, come up to like 4,000 RPM. And when he drops his arm, go. Right? And
that's a hell of a brake stand.
That. Right. And so you can tell right off the bat who's cut out for it. And I'm not saying all this to say, oh, I'm rad or anything. I'm just saying you could see right away if somebody would, whoa, and lift, because they were terrified of that. It's loud and it really puts you in your seat. And so you get through that and they go, okay, we're going to do the same thing, but we're going to have a little jump right in front of you. There's like a little dirt mound that's 2 feet tall.
And there's a guy with a clipboard being like, okay, check. She did the brake stand. All right.
Exactly.
Check. Yeah.
Exactly. So now we do the same thing. I'm only going to drive 30 feet, but 10 feet in front of the truck is a little 2-foot like speed bump. Guess what happens when you hit that at full throttle?
That's a wheelie right there. Yeah.
Oh, you're jumping the truck. You're flying through the air. But I've already been through the air. I have driven some short course. I have, launched my rock crawler off.
You've been on fire. I mean, come on.
I've been on fire. So none of this stuff really intimidated me. I just see it as trust the equipment. If you can trust the equipment, just do what they say.
Yeah, this guy's not going to be like, hey, let's get this chick. They're just
exactly. They're not going to tell me something that the car's not capable of doing. So my job is to just make it do that. Okay.
That's what I tell my kids all the time. I'm like, hey, this skateboard, I would never tell you to do something that I didn't think you could do. And they're always like, okay. And then they try it. Yeah. Just trust the equipment.
Trust the equipment. And so that's just like, I knew the vehicle was capable of doing that. So why would my opinion matter at that point? Just do what they said. All right. Yep. So then you go through that for a couple of days. By the end of the second day, you're going diagonal off the big jump. You're just flying through the air, going off diagonal off the big jump. And then they go, hey, you want a job? I'm like, oh, cool. There's a job. Okay. So I ran with that. And 6 weeks later was my very first show. Here's the thing. I was like, yeah, like, when am I going to practice again? And they're like, oh, no. The next time you're behind the wheel is in your first show. Oh, okay. Sure. I've never even seen a show, and I've only been practicing in a giant field. And then they're going to put me in the smallest hockey rink you've ever seen, right? It's like 10 pounds of stuff in a 5-pound bag when you put a monster truck in a hockey rink. By the way, don't hit anything.
Yeah, don't run over the spectators. Don't leave the arena.
I fully hit the wall, and I was like, what do you expect? I've only been in a field thus far. So anyway, yeah, it was kind of like baptism by fire. We never had an opportunity to practice. Every show, we would only drive the truck for about 3 minutes at a time. And then the next show I'd drive for 3 minutes at a time. And if we had 3 shows that weekend, I drove for 9 minutes.
Yeah. And what are the driving dynamics of that like? What is that thing? I mean, obviously the power, but what is it steer like kind of shitty? Is it like, it steers like dog shit, right? I mean,
yeah. That's why we have rear steer. So remember when we were talking about a trophy truck? Yeah. I said that they'll go suck up 4-foot whoops and the chassis will stay level and the suspension will do all the work, right? Yeah. That's because all of the weight is sprung weight. So all of the weight is above the suspension. Yeah. In a monster truck, 75% of the weight is unsprung weight. So a 10,000-pound truck means the axles and the tires and the wheels are 7,500 pounds, which is why the show is entertaining, because it's like boing, 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 boing. The car boings all over the place. Right. It drives terribly, and your neck feels it. You're like, whoa! I mean, it is whiplash city. So we have to have really, really tight head and neck restraints, way tighter than you would use in off-road racing. Yep. And short. And you could still turn your neck with a head and neck restraint set up properly in short course or in desert, so you could see around a corner. Not so in a monster truck. It's you can't move a quarter inch in any direction, and it's to protect yourself from dying, like becoming paralyzed. So it's violent, and because it's so big, I mean, the tires are 66 by 43 wide by like 24-inch wheel. I mean, that tire is as tall as I am. Yeah. It's huge. And so you have to have rear steer or it's not going to turn. You're not going to do a donut. You can't even turn within the radius of a stadium without rear steer. So your right hand is on a toggle switch to control the rear. Your left hand is on a steering wheel. And you look real gangster, That's the only way you can drive. It's a lot of just lucky hits, lucky bounces. You're just sort of, I can't even say it's controlled chaos. It's very uncontrolled chaos.
So are you going on tour, or how does this, like you go to Monster Jam, are you traveling with everyone? What is it like to be on tour with Monster Jam? Yeah. So traditionally all hands on deck first quarter of the year. So every weekend at the time, it was right after New Year's, that first weekend for the first quarter, which is 12, 13 weeks, right? That we were on tour every weekend, back to back to back, and simultaneous around the country would be like maybe 8 different shows. So you'd have a gravedigger at each show, but one's in Florida, one's in LA, one's in Wisconsin. They're all over the place, one in Texas. Yep. And the fans thought that, this is honestly the only show going on. I'll be honest, Bigfoot is the good one. I'm going to go with Bigfoot.
Is like
I grew up in Wisconsin. Is it really?
So
that was all it was when I was a kid. It was Bigfoot, 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 Bigfoot. And you always, I mean, it's probably like saying like Michael Jordan is cool. And I'm sure it's kind of like that, I guess.
I have no problem with any of it. Apparently, at some point way before I joined, there was a falling out between Bigfoot and Monster Jam where they each were like, you're never going to survive without me. And boom, they parted ways. And so Bigfoot never, from when I was there, was never part of Monster Jam. They went off and started their own series and stuff.
I haven't heard about Bigfoot since I was a kid. I haven't heard anything about it.
Shows.
Yeah.
But Monster Jam did sort of emerge as the premier promoter. Yeah, there are other promoters, but they were the biggest ones.
And you did a flip.
Oh, yeah.
Was that something that you intended to do? Had you been dreaming about that? Did you have like a little notebook out that said, all right, I'm going to do this with this much throttle. I'm going to hit this thing. And I'm going to do a backflip. Was that decided ahead of time? Was that something you coordinated with the producers?
Well, typically when we were at a show, we would have a driver's meeting ahead of time. And if you can imagine, if we have 16 trucks in a stadium, what if they said, hey, everybody can do anything they want? And if 16 people attempt a backflip, the audience is going to be pretty bored. You're not going to feel it's very significant when you see it over and over again, right? So they would say, hey, 3 of you are authorized to do the backflip. You know who you are. Don't try it unless you're one of these 3. So I had never been given a green light before. And suddenly I found myself at an event. It was the World Finals in Las Vegas in 2014. And at the driver's meeting, they said, no restrictions. Light bulb goes off in my head. If there's ever going to be an opportunity to try it, it's now. There had been a handful of guys that were doing it. One female had attempted it, but didn't land it. She kind of did a 1.5 and crashed on her roof. I didn't realize at the time that my attempt was significant because when I landed it, I became the first female to land the backflip. I didn't realize that until kind of told me that, but I was like, oh. And so I was teammates with Dennis Anderson that year. And I went up to him after the driver's meeting in our trailer. And I said, hey, I was thinking about doing the backflip. Do you have any advice for me? And he just said, commit. Okay. He didn't tell me this is how you do a backflip. Yeah. He never said like, push it this much throttle, approach it like this. He didn't give me any advice except commit. And I knew what he meant because I watched his son break his neck when he landed on his roof. It's a big deal. We had no practice because it is far too expensive to just attempt when nobody's looking. Yeah. And so I just waited till the very end of my run, knowing that there was a high likelihood that I could break the truck or not land it properly. And I didn't want to ruin my run, my freestyle right at the beginning. So I was like, I'll wait till the very end. Save the truck. I kind of just did a really modest poo-poo kind of style freestyle because I was the whole time amped up about burn up my 2 minutes. I want to go do a backflip.
Yeah.
So at the end of that, I just drove up this Connex box and I never lifted the throttle, which is what he meant by commit. Do not change your mind mid backflip because you need all of that rotational mass to pull the truck around. I mean, you need those tires and wheels to like pull it around. So there's a GoPro on my face. My eyes are literally this big the whole time because I'm looking for the ground. My whole universe spun around me. And then as soon as I could see that I'm still wide open throttle, come around. And as soon as I could tell that I was like now landing, I moved to the brake pedal and just stood on the brakes. And I broke the housing. My tires were out like this, pink, you know what I mean? I broke everything, the tie rod, the housing, everything was like broken, but I rotated it and I landed it.
That's a lot of mass. No wonder stuff got broken. Yeah.
Oh yeah. 10,000 pounds coming right down on the nose. Hindsight, I should have rotated more. I should have got into it sooner, but that's hindsight. You're watching the very first attempt that I had ever done.
Did you ever do it again?
One other time, and I didn't land it. It rotated in the air and I crashed. Because if you're not perfectly square with the obstacle, it kind of pirouettes inside the air. So
did you have to kind of maintain a personality with the truck? Because the trucks all have a personality too. How do you deal with or meld your personality with the truck's personality?
Could you ask me a dumber question? Do you think I had any personality driving a truck?
I don't know. I imagine you don't ever, when I was a kid, I didn't necessarily, I just was like Gravedigger, right? And you knew who drove, but it was just like the personality of Gravedigger. Did you like take on that personality, or did you just, I mean, how does that work?
By my third year, they said, hey, we want you to drive Scooby-Doo. It had never been driven before. Like, it was a brand new truck, right? It was an officially licensed Warner Brothers truck. I hadn't even seen it before. They told me about 3 months in advance. I had to keep it on the down low. And I was kind of offended. I was like, it's a boy dog. Like, Scooby's a boy dog. Like, yay, cool. Everybody's heard of Scooby. But like, how am I going to portray this, right? Because we have pit parties and we get a chance to meet all the little kids and they get their picture with the driver and an autograph. And how am I going to create something? So my husband, when I was like, oh, it's a dog, it's a boy dog, he goes, you're thinking of it all wrong, Nicole. Scooby's your pet. And I was like, oh, yeah, I'm not the dog. He's my pet. Because what's a female dog?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Yeah, I didn't want to be that.
Yeah.
So the only thing I could think of was, well, Daphne wore all purple. No, I don't have, orange, red hair. But what if I could pretend to be Daphne? So I had purple eyeshadow and purple pants and purple nail polish and purple boots. And I wore a purple fire suit. And every time the fans saw me, I was in all purple. So I wouldn't be confused as the dog. I was the girl who had a dog. And so I would refer to the truck, like after the show, I'd be like, oh, I gave him Scooby snacks and he really did awesome. I just treated it like my pet. And then the fans loved it. And it worked really, really well.
That probably, I mean, the ability to adapt like that probably helped your personal brand too. Being able to learn how to do that.
I think so. I still have people, like, I haven't driven since December of 2016. I retired a long time ago. I still have people that will message me and be like, hey, I just saw you in Nashville. I'm like, cool, follow me. Like, it's not even me.
You miss that? Do you miss, like, when was the last time you sat in a monster truck? Do you want to do it again? Do you miss that at all?
Yeah, I was in Santiago, Chile, in December of 2016 was the last time I was in a monster truck. And at that time, I had won wheelies, like pretty much cleaned up the wheelie competition that whole weekend. And I was like, for that was also their first time in Santiago, Chile. And I was like, I'm the winningest wheelier in all of Chile, because nobody had ever been down there to do it before, So for a brief moment, I was the winningest wheelier.
It's like my grandma saying I'm her favorite grandson. Yeah, I'm the only one.
Yes, yeah. Exactly. I miss a lot of aspects to it, but there's a lot of things I don't miss. It's like I did it for 6 solid years, and I made a conscientious decision to move on to other things so that I could save my body. It's violent. And so that I could try new things. So yeah, I miss the kids a lot. That was my favorite part, was interacting with the little kids, and they were always excited. They were always having a good time. What's not to love about that?
Yeah, for sure.
So that was my thing I missed.
There's a guy down the street from me who does demolition derby. And I always see his car. He's got different cars. They're in various states of being a crushed up can. And I remember talking to him for a little bit. And we got into a pretty serious conversation of like how he's really fucked up.
Yeah.
Like his body is fucked up. And now his son, who's like 25 or something, does it. And he's like, I really wish my son wouldn't do this.
Sure.
I am so fucked up. And he's so sore, and just like,
you
can see it the way he walks. You can see him walk back up the driveway.
I still have headaches. I just took Excedrin right before we started. I know that it's because I don't have a curve in my neck anymore. I just, I've had a lot of whiplash, and as tight as you are in those belts, the military had come out and done some testing on the seats that we were using, which is a rigid aluminum seat with a dense foam pad. You don't
like
want
a Kirky seat or something, just like that.
It was like a NASCAR style aluminum, and then just dense foam, no suspension. You do not, like in a Jeep, you want a suspension seat. That's comfortable, right? Sitting in it all day long. And in this kind of thing, you want no suspension at all, because you want to be sort of at one with the truck. When a truck falls out of the air, we've got 66 inches of tire that's going to compress, acts a little bit as suspension. Big, giant double shocks at every corner that are taller than me. Those are going to compress. The next thing to compress is your seat if it has suspension. So no compression. You want to be as tight as possible so that you're just bouncing like this instead of bouncing like this with the truck. Yeah. And The military came out and did some testing on those seats, and they found that when that truck does a big air jump and it impacts, that moment of impact is 20 G's.
Whew.
That's a lot on your body. And if you're not,
over and over,
I've taken a lot of hits where I never felt it. Somehow all the stars and planets aligned just perfect where it was really clean and you could take it. But a lot of times it was like a wha-bam, and your head would slam the back of that seat when you like would nose over, and just like, if you didn't real smoothly land, if you kind of nosed and it became a slight wheelie, your head would fling backward, and you would literally hear and see, like in the cartoons, like stars, like a bang and an instant
flash of
headache.
white. Yeah,
like an instant headache. So I don't know if my insurance company hears this, and if I ever get into an accident and want to claim whiplash, they're going to deny my claim, or they're going to say, oh yeah, pre-existing condition and she's more sensitive. I don't know how that will ever go down, but it's violent. You got to
tell me about starting up with YouTube. That's like, did you consider that like a big leap? Were you nervous to start? Because that's really putting yourself out there, just you by yourself. Are people going to like me? Is this something I should do?
So my producer, I've known for many, many years. When I was, whenever I had sponsor contracts, any contract that ever came my way, he helped me review those. I always introduced him as my manager to people because he was really helping guide my career behind the scenes the whole time. From 2007 or so on, he helped guide me. And when COVID hit, he had a production company and they were filming in hospitals. Well, when COVID hit, there's no more filming in hospitals. He's filming documentaries in hospitals, like conjoined twins or open heart surgery or whatever, right? None of that. So he reached out and he goes, hey, remember that show we had always talked about? Way back in the monster truck days, we had thought about this show. A slightly different concept, but nonetheless, we had talked about doing a show, because I was contacted pretty frequently by Hollywood producers that wanted to do a monster truck driving mom show, like a reality show, right? I don't have the rights to any of that. I don't own the truck. Monster Jam didn't want to have anything to do with it, but it made us think about, well, what could we do? And when, I retired by the end of 2016, just worked on my house for a few years, and kind of probably to the car world looked like I vanished for about 4 years, because I was hanging out with my kids and doing family stuff and remodeling my house and other things that were not very, car sexy. And when COVID hit, he goes, my whole entire schedule's been wiped out. So why don't we do that show that we'd always talked about? And I was like, well, I'm down. Let's do it. So that was October of 2020. And by February of 2021, we released our first video. We had already filmed about 3 of them by then, and sort of decided, we'll trickle them out every couple of weeks, And I was so nervous. My hands were shaking when I was hitting publish. Like, it was uploaded, and I was like so scared because I didn't know how anyone would take it. I didn't, you are exposing yourself for criticism. And I now was doing something very different from what anybody had known me for. It wasn't off-road. It was like, I just want to drive your Volkswagen with 500 horsepower and with a dog box, and I'm going to grind some gears accidentally because I've never done a dog box before. And it's really cringy, and you look like a mad scientist, and maybe will anyone watch this? Are they going to rip me a new one? We got 2 million views in 30 days. Yeah. And we just went, what happened? Whoa, like, I guess people are watching this. And then you have to learn, like, oh my gosh, not everybody, you can't make everybody happy. There are critics in everything that you do. And I'm still scared. Every time we hit upload, I'm like, will anybody watch this? Will anybody care? My producer is like, I don't care if 2,000 people see it. 500 people see it. I don't care.
You do.
Well, I do, because it's also very expensive. And we put a month of editing into every episode. It's a buttload of work. Yeah. I sure hope people will watch it, because I'll be really sad if no one does. And we've just been very fortunate that people are watching it. And the general vibe is that they're enjoying it. So we keep doing it.
Did you pitch partners and sponsors ahead of time before you started it, or did that?
No.
No, there's nobody gave a shit. Nobody gave a shit, right?
No, we're like, okay, there's a deserted island way over there, and we're just going to go do our own thing. And you want to watch, you can watch.
Yeah.
We're just doing our own thing. We didn't ask anyone's permission. We didn't run it by any sponsors. We just sort of, I had relationships with like Kicker Audio I've had relationship for like 15 years with Kicker. And I said, hey, I'm going to do this. I'm going to put your logo at the end of this first video that we're launching because you guys have been so awesome to me over the years. They didn't give me any money for that. I didn't ask them for money. I just said, maybe would you help promote the video? And here it is 9.5 million views later that their video has been seen, no, we didn't have sponsors. We just did our own
later.
thing.
That came later.
Yeah.
Do you enjoy it still? Or is it still, because I talk
awesome.
to, I know a lot of YouTube creators in this world. And some are like, I love this. Some behind the scenes say it's a grind. And it just is grinding them and whittling them down. And I think they enjoy it too. But I think they, when asked honestly by a friend, they say that it's really a grind.
I'm not there yet. And maybe one day that'll happen. But I think because we have chosen quality over quantity, we don't get worn down. We only release one a month. Mm-hmm. And that is a full-time job in itself. Sometimes even that, like it's been 5 days since I released an episode because we took some time off. And last week we went and filmed a couple things. Because we don't have any bosses or anyone telling us what to do or holding us over a schedule, we're just keeping it fun and doing it when we want to do it, I think when I see people that are committing, like you go on their channel and it says right on their banner image, new episodes every Thursday and Saturday. I'm like, you're stupid for committing to that because
that's tough.
Good luck trying to not burn out.
Yeah,
and we just release them when we want to release them. Keeping it fun.
You own your YouTube channel. It's yours, right? I mean, you're not. Mm-hmm. There's been a lot of shakeups in the, I've been watching, all these things pop up on my feed. So-and-so's leaving this, so-and-so's leaving that. This YouTube content channel has lost this person. Do you have any thoughts on like this? It seems like there's like this monumental shift right now from people leaving these large content, what is it even called? Like production houses or whatever. I don't even know what you call them, to become independent.
Yeah, I mean, I think you saw that with Hoonigan. You've seen a lot of changes if you've ever followed any of the Hoonigan stuff since, seems like, I'm just speculating here because I don't really know anybody over there like to know how it works. But it seems like after Ken Block died, there was sort of an exodus, and then you would see guys going off and creating their own little channels and doing their own thing. And there's always reasons. But I think because my producer and I, we own the copyright, we own the production company, we do what we want to do. I mean, I think if I quit or he quit, there wouldn't be a show. Neither of us could function without the other. And we're just a small little production and we still have fun doing it. So right now, I don't know why people are shifting, but maybe people are telling them what to do. I don't know. It's no fun to be told what to do. I went through that when I was at Monster Jam, to be honest. I was told what to do. I was told, drive to this particular level today, fit within this box, burn it down, don't burn it down. Like whatever it was, I was told to drive at a particular level and oftentimes told how to, what to do. And my social media was scrutinized by like, you can't post that. For example, one time we were at a hotel. It was the night before a show. And my crew thought it would be funny to TP my rental car. Super harmless, right?
Yeah.
I go out to my rental car the morning of a show and there's toilet paper all over it.
Yeah.
It seems pretty harmless. I posted a picture of that.
Yeah, no problem.
And I was told to take that picture down. Because
no fun allowed.
Yeah, they didn't want the fans to think that like all this goofing off was happening behind the scenes. Well, there's toilet paper.
Of course it is.
Of course that's what's happening. But
you're human beings.
Yeah. This is dumb, silly little example, but I suspect that people are wanting to be their own creative bosses because we have that. I'm satisfied.
Yeah, that's awesome. Do you have a favorite video that you've done so far? Like, what's your favorite thing you've driven? The favorite one to put together?
The favorite thing I've driven. That is a tough one. I'm asked that a lot because
in the YouTube series that you've created, your favorite episode, favorite thing you've driven.
Favorite thing I've driven. Okay, so the first year my buddy Scott Birdsall has an off-road safari style 911. to be honest, that was my favorite car that I had never driven a 911 before. And we were just sliding around in the dirt, probably because it felt familiar. It felt like what I'd done in monster trucks and stuff. I thought it was a lot of fun. I also thought a Porsche would never, ever be in my garage. Yeah. So I think that when people were asking me like, hey, what's your favorite thing you ever done? I was like, that was really cool. That was so cool because it combined my favorite things. Like I was now sliding around in the dirt. That was super fun to me. I've never been to rally school. I've always wanted to go to like Dirt Fish or Rally Ready or one of these places because that's all I want to learn how to do really well, you know, is slide around in the dirt in a car. And that was really fun to me. I have enjoyed I'm not just being politically correct.
Hey, Dirt Fish, if you're listening, a collaboration opportunity here. Hello.
I know. Trust me, I've been trying with them. This is an expensive undertaking, right? So I would love to do it. But that sort of, that I liked that a lot. Then I drove Magnus Walker's 277.
That's a special one.
Yeah, it is special. And Magnus is a freak in a very good way. He is obsessed with Porsches. You can't come away from 2 days with Magnus without thinking, I got to buy a Porsche. Like you feel like I have to buy one. These are so awesome. Yeah. And that really did impact me. I drove his car in September, oddly, on 9/11, not to be confused with the horrible 9/11, but I was like, wow, I'm driving a 9/11 on 9/11. This is really weird. And I'd never driven one on the street. So my very first car on the street was Magnus's. And then I found myself looking on Craigslist. Got a Porsche. So,
it doesn't take
it doesn't take much. I actually really, really like the Porsches. They've all been awesome. One that has been extremely special to me, though, the most special has been the Cobras. I mean, I've driven now several original Shelby Cobras, all owned by the same guy. And those are probably the most special to me. The one that I thought the most attainable, which made me think was my favorite, was the 911s because they're not Shelby Cobras. They're much more attainable.
What else? What's out there? What are you looking at wanting to drive? Do you have like this like a short list or is it a long list? Or I
want to drive everything. I want to drive weird things. I mean, I would do lawnmower racing in Alabama if I could get there. You know what I mean? I want to drive weird things.
When we were in Arkansas scouting for the rally, we pulled over on the side of the road. We were just, everything for some reason closes at random times. And on this day, everybody went home at 3. So it's 4:30. We thought we were going to get something to drink. The only thing open was a gas station. So we went over, grabbed a Gatorade, went back into this little tiny town, which had like this attached ghost town to it. It was super cool. And we were sitting like on this like little stoop thing of this old house that was no longer a house now. It was just a museum for something. But we were sitting there and this dude is driving by on his Skag lawnmower with a mullet and his hat and everything. And he's like, stops. He goes, "That your Porsche?" And I'm like, I didn't know if he was gonna be mad or not. I'm like, "Yep, that's it." And he's like, "Sick!" And he like just drove away on his that was his transportation around town. Was the funny. 0-turn Skag lawnmower. So that was, and he drove back again later, and he did the slow just like if you were in a car and you saw things that you'd like to check out, and you just kind of did this thing and with his little 0-turn lawnmower.
That's cool.
The lawnmower racing would be sick. You see some of those guys
I want to drive weird things, you know?
I want to drive a 18-wheeler real bad.
Oh yeah. So totally. I want to shift all those gears and just be horrible at it. That's what I want to do.
I had a guy, there is, in case you're interested, I found out that I think it's in Colombia, Mobile One puts on the biggest semi truck event. And they do tractor pulls and racing, and they pull lumber and they do all this stuff.
Yeah.
I want to go to that so bad. I want to drive one in the worst possible way. Please, somebody send me a DM that I can drive your truck. I also want to drive tractors, like John Deere farm tractors. I would love to drive a combine.
Yeah.
I just want to do it. I just want to be all the way up there like this, driving a combine. I want to drive a tank. I want to.
Yes.
I
totally with you on the tank. That is totally on my
drive
list.
A tank.
I want to shoot the gun.
I've
been in a tank. I was at an army base and I got to crawl into the tank. That was really weird and cool. But I really want to just drive it and shoot it. I want to do all that.
Yeah, I just want to drive. Yeah, I like driving things. I like boats. I want to drive all kinds of various kinds of boats. I want to drive speed boats. I want to drive yachts. I want to get on houseboats and look at them. Yeah, I'm with you there. I want to drive. I want to drive all the things. Instead, I get quagmired back here in projects and planning rallies. But maybe down the road, I'll get to drive some more things.
Yeah. That's cool. No, if I am finding myself just like, ooh, wow, what's that? I feel like I must have like ADHD or something. Cause I'm like, oh, that's my new interest. Oh, that's
Yeah.
my new interest. And
Yeah.
I'm buzzing all over the place. But I mean, when we started this, I was like telling my husband and my producer and everybody around me, like, hey, you might need to tell me what's cool. Cause I'll look at something like, oh, that's super cool. And they're like, no, that's dumb, Nicole. Like, you have to be told what's cool. I don't pretend to know everything that's out there. I'm literally learning each new car. Like, oh, I get it. That's cool for these reasons. So everything is just this weird new discovery. I'm like a kid in a candy store, but I have no idea what kind of candy they offer. I'm just running around from aisle to aisle discovering new ones.
Yeah.
You know?
I was just thinking all of a sudden of a steamroller. I really want to drive a steamroller. Big one, a little one. I want to drive a dump truck. I'm just thinking anything. I want to drive one of those big crane trucks. I want to drive that have I want to drive a fire truck. I want to drive an ambulance.
I was just about to say fire truck. So I've driven a fire truck. There was this Vegas. There's this vintage fire truck that the Clark County Fire has. And I really wanted to do an episode on this truck. My producer was like, no, that's lame. I'm like, that's not lame because all of our viewers grew up wanting to be firemen. Like that's all they want to do as a little boy is be a fireman. And so I went out and reached out to the fire department and they are like, hey, we have this really cool vintage truck that we use in parades and stuff. And you got to shift it really weird. You got to float the gears. I'm like, yeah, that's the one.
That one.
And we never ended up filming it, but they did let me drive it around. I drove it around Vegas for a little bit just for fun one day. And I'm like, it was really cool. And
or being the guy in the back of the fire truck.
Oh yeah. I wanted to put the fire out though. I want to wear all the gear. I want to be dripping sweat. I want to have 50 pounds of gear and I want to hold the hose and be putting the fire out too.
Yeah.
I want to do the
whole thing.
Like Dirty Jobs.
Live the life. Yeah.
Like I want to be like Mike Rowe, but in the car world. Like I want to do all
adjacent. The car adjacent Mike Rowe.
Yeah.
Oh, that'd be great. Well, I love your channel. I've watched, I'm not a super avid supporter of YouTube in general. You know, I hop on there and look at different things. I watch your stuff. It's really good.
Thanks.
You should be really proud of what you put together.
Thanks.
And I think you've done some really cool shit. And I look forward to all the things that you get to drive.
I would love to come out and do, some rallies with you guys, but like not with my car. I don't want to put rock chips in my car. Like if somebody has a car that they're like, hey, Nicole, come on this rally. And they want me to drive their car. I'll come out and do it.
Put the rock chips in the car. That's what are you saving it for?
I've already got 7 in the last couple months. Yes.
You can count them. You can't even count mine. You can't even count how many rock chips I have. It's okay.
I'm learning to be okay with it.
Yeah. Well, you've already got more than one, so it's all downhill from here.
Yeah. I'll be at Works Reunion at Monterey in a couple of weeks. By the time this airs, maybe that's old news. I don't know.
It'll be a couple weeks, 2-3 weeks. This will be out.
Yeah. So by then it'll be old news. But I'm really excited because I'm going to drive from Vegas to Monterey in August with no AC.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Man.
It's going to be a fun one.
That's tough. I did I don't remember what time of year it was, but I was shooting something with Mike from Stance Works, and for Nitto Tire, we went up to Big Bear. And then from there, we went to Car Week. And I remember driving across the Mojave Desert in my 911, and it was unbelievable.
Yep.
Unbelievable. And I just scouted Arkansas, and it was 90 to 95 degrees with like a dew point of like 75 or 80 the whole time.
Dripping. It's probably worse, right? Isn't that worse than our dry heat in the Mojave?
Oh, it was so bad. It is so bad. I can't even explain how hot I was. It was anywhere from 7 to 10 hours a day in the car for like 5 or 6 days, driving around Arkansas looking for roads for everybody. So pretty soon we started getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
And then we'd be done by noon, and then we'd go out again in the evening to get it done. Yeah, you're going to suffer.
That's my plan is to leave early in the morning at like 5 or 6 because, it'll be like 90 and not 100.
If you're moving, you're going to be cherry pie.
Yeah.
You'll be good to go. There'll be plenty of airflow in there and you'll be fine.
I'll try, except my eyes will dry out. Okay. So I had this wild idea and I got on Amazon and I bought some like motorcycle goggles that will fit over my prescription glasses. And they showed up yesterday. And I had to drive about 40 minutes across town. And because I just got those stripes put on my car. You saw the cool
I saw that.
retro stripes.
Yep.
And I was like, okay, I'm going to try these goggles out. This is probably the stupidest thing ever. I'm driving with all the windows down because my eyes get so dry with all the warm air, blowing into and it hurts to blink. And I just have dry eye issues anyway. I sent a selfie to my husband and he's like, this is the stupidest thing I've ever seen. And I pull up and I see some guy. I look over at some guy and he quickly looks away because he was staring at me like, she's stupid.
Will you send me the photo so I can put it in this clip?
Oh my gosh. I'll send it to you.
I'll add it as a little thumbnail right here.
So today I returned the goggles because he was like, you're not wearing those to Monterey. You look stupid.
You never would be able to handle it in the heat anyway. Your eyes would have been in basically a greenhouse.
Well, it pushes on your nose and then you can't breathe because your nose is all clamped. I was like, screw this.
All sweaty. Yeah.
I'll just deal with some eye drops. Yeah.
Yeah. They should make eye drops in like a spritz bottle. So you don't have to do the drop. You just kind of go and you just spray your eyes like this.
That's a good idea.
Yeah. Hey, I patented this just right now. You owe me at least 30% if you
face eye drops that you spray onto your face.
Just full on, yeah. Also moisturizes the skin. It could
also,
do that as well. It could do both.
If anyone's listening that makes like electric ACs for a 911, reach out because I could use one.
Well, here's our ad for AC Solutions coming right up. But AC, so they're going to be developing stuff for the 911 pretty soon. They do stuff like factory level stuff for BMWs, E28s, E30s, M5, stuff like that. I know that they just bought a 911 for R&D.
Well, Vegas is hot. Vegas and Phoenix are pretty much as hot as it gets. So I'm happy to be the guinea pig if they want to use me.
Right on.
I need it.
I will let them know. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I appreciate it very much. The link to your YouTube channel will be in the show notes. I encourage everybody to check it out. Enjoy your desert drive, and I will see you on the road somewhere. I'll probably see you at Luft is where I'll see you next.
Okay, very cool. Thanks a lot, Chris. I appreciate it.
You bet. Take care.